What is up, my people? JaxB.TheRipper here, and we are back with another episode with About the Band. In case you guys don't know what this is, basically I am matching my makeup to the shirt, which today is the Cannibal Corpse one, Butchered at Birth. And if it's not like a shirt, maybe it'll be like a metal album or something around there. So that's what we're doing here today. So I am redoing this look. You guys probably remember the first time, but at that time I wasn't talking about the band or anything. Plus I really hated that look and I was in a bad mood that day and I was like, you know, just on a rant. So anyways, without any further ado, let's get started. From Buffalo, New York, Cannibal Corpse started out with childhood friends Chris Barnes and Paul. I ain't even gonna say that name. No, I'm gonna butcher it, no. So, they started off by doing, like, you know, just air band stuff, and then they decided one day, they're like, hey, instead of playing, like, air guitar and air drums, why don't we actually make an actual band? And then from there, they got Bob Rousset, and then a couple other members that eventually left, and they formed a band called Tyrant Sin. At first, that was their first name. So then, you know, they split up or whatever, and only Bob and Chris and Paul stayed. And eventually came in Alex Webster and Jack Owens, and they had came from another band. So they ended up being the full-on members that eventually became Cannibal Corpse, and I believe it was Alex Webster that came up with the name because they were coming up with lyrics, you know, like zombie, murder, and like death and all that. So they were like, it just fits. So they just thought it went really well with their lyrics. So as the band came together, they were able to make their first demo, and with that whole tape trade thing back in the day, does anybody even remember that? I don't, because it was before my time. Well, no, not really. I think my time was like literally by the time the tape trade was ending. But anyways, in those days, they did the whole tape trading thing. They were like, it was kind of like pen pals almost, but with music, and then you'll get like stickers and maybe a shirt, I think. So it was kind of done through that, but that helped spread the word back then. And back then, they even had CD shops. Does anybody remember that? Like PacSun and all that, or little indie places. And they were actually able to sell their demo there in a couple of their local areas. Their first show was to open for Dark Angel, playing at the River Rock in Buffalo. The promoter to that show gave the band 2,000 flyers to hand out at a Metallica show all over the upstate area in New York. It worked so well that at the club they were playing was packed, and they had to turn people away. The scene in that Buffalo area got strong because of them. So at that time, Chris Barnes was working at a record store named Cabbages and became friends with a guy named John Condoni, who just so happens to be friends with Mike Fairley. John lent the demo to Mike, and Mike got interested, and he called around asking who are these guys. And right away, he liked that it was a song called Skull Full of Maggots, and he's like, they're signed. And in case you don't know, because I forgot to mention this, Mike Fairley, I don't know if he still is, but he was in charge of Metal Blade Records. So Cannibal Corpse got signed. They finally signed a contract and everything. Only thing is, critics were not taking them so seriously. They were like, really? There's a band that is like singing about zombies and like killing people. And it was like, it was a different sound. It was more death metal. And Metal Blade wasn't known to have death metal bands. Tampa Bay, Florida was mainly known to handle death metal bands, especially, you know, like bands like Death, obviously, and Morbid Angel. So they decided to go ahead and go to Morrison Sound Records, which have helped these bands in the past with death metal bands, I mean. And they were like, okay, we'll help you out. And so they go ahead and help out Cannibal Corpse with their Eaten Back to Life album. So as they were in Florida, they loved every minute of it. So they were more than happy to be there. They did a successful job with Eaten Back to Life. And now it was on to the artwork. Now, there was a guy named Vince Locke that the band had chosen, specifically Chris Barnes. So they tried to hunt him down and find him, and they loved some zombie comic book that he had done. So they called him up and they're like, hey, can you do the artwork for us? And then they send him like I guess demos, I mean not demos, but they sent him a CD. And Vince was listening to the album. And if I remember correctly reading, I forgot which metal magazine it was, but I was reading a magazine that they were talking to Vince, and he had said, I was more than happy to work with them. I just needed the lyrics to be sent to me because I had no idea what they were talking about.
And it was a good thing that they sent him the lyrics, because the artwork was so magnificent and nobody had ever seen anything like that in its time. I mean, he added details, including from like the skull full of maggots and from the songs and the Bloody Virgin Mary and everything. So he did such a good job with listening to the lyrics and incorporating that into the album artwork, I should say. But he sticks around with Cannibal Corpse, like Vince Locke. Like, he has done practically every grotesque imagery that you have seen out there. I believe he's done every single one of them. But yeah, we all have him to thank for our t-shirts and all. And so Cannibal Corpse fame was rising more and more. They were able to book all over the East Coast. And they finally went back to Florida for Butchered at Birth. Now, Butchered at Birth was the album that finally they developed a vocal sound, which is the deep guttural voice. And people have said they can't remember anyone else doing that. Maybe the band Mortician, but they really felt like this was like the first band that started the deep guttural voice with Chris Barnes. Not only that, but they finally had like more of that death metal brutal sound to it, because they had said Eaten Back to Life had a little bit more of a thrash sound, not too much, it just had some influence on it. But with Butchered at Birth, it was their sound for sure. The deep guttural vocals was something definitely that set out Cannibal Corpse to be more unique than the other bands out there, as well as them just plainly sticking to death metal and death lyricals. You had other bands that, yeah, they'll add death to their lyrics, but then at the same time, here comes Satan. So they just basically, they did not want to be no satanic type of band, none of that nonsense. They just wanted to be plain death, because they loved horror movies. People were calling them like horror metal. And they were just like, okay, yeah, we like a lot of horror movies. How can we fit this into our music? It was kind of the same way with Ozzy Osbourne with Black Sabbath when they first were creating their sound. They loved scary music from scary movies. So they're like, okay, let's make scary music, but in our own way. The band had their first ever European tour with a French band called Loud Blast, and then they actually got paid for it. They were actually more famous than they thought. They had people in France going up to them for autographs. Once they got back home to the States, Metal Blade Records made sure they had their first American tour. So Tomb of the Mutilated came out, and just like Butchered at Birth, the cover albums caused a little ruckus. Like, it caused controversy. For sure, a lot of parents didn't like it. The parental advisory sticker was bigger than the logo, and that made it sell more. And Metal Blade Records knew they had to come out with like dual covers, because they knew Tomb of the Mutilated was the one that will put them on the map, and they had to do whatever they can in order to sell albums, even if they had to put like a censored version on top of that. So then the band started making some musical or musician changes, as we should say. They decided to have Jack play all the rhythms instead of Bob, and Bob eventually got kicked out of the band. It was creative differences, and they just felt like he wasn't progressing with the band. It wasn't something that they really wanted to do, but they knew if they had to move forward with the band, they had to let him go. And that's when they got Rob Beret. Rob was playing with the band Solstice, and at the time, so he was supposed to be just like a filler in just for the shows that they had coming up with Cannibal Corpse, I mean. And he definitely said at first the riffs were very different for him to play, like it wasn't something that he was used to. But he eventually got like a permanent position with them, obviously, as we all know. And then after that, Mike Faley, again going back to Metal Blade Records, owner of Metal Blade Records, I mean, tells the band like, hey, Jim Carrey has a movie coming up. He wants you guys in it. Do you guys want to be in it? And of course, that movie was Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. they quickly agreed and everything, and when they got there, they filmed for 4 days, and they said that Jim Carrey is a huge metal fan, that he especially loves death metal, from DSI to AC/DCs to so many bands. And he was like, you guys are going to play Hammer Smash Face, right? So they weren't even sure what song they were going to play, but you know, in case you guys don't know how it's like to work on set, when you're filming, you can't have any sound, so everything was kind of, again, like air band, if you kind of think like air guitar, and the only thing maybe you were able to hear was just like the feet of the pretend moshing. So it is because they have to add the sound afterwards, that's why. The foundation I just put on is by Beauty Creations. I actually don't recommend it. I find that this foundation kind of like collects, like it gathers up. It almost felt plasticky. I don't know how to explain it. So yeah, it's an okay foundation. It's $12. They don't have that many shade range. The palest color that I'm wearing right now is actually like a very light yellow. They said it was supposed to be like pink tones, and I was like, yeah, that is not a pink tone. So yeah, I forgot what false lashes I'm wearing, to tell you the truth. So sorry. The Bleeding album came out, their 4th studio album, and it changed a bit. It had the speed changed, and the pursuit to the musical angle was different. It had more groove to it. It had made more of a technical approach for the guitar work and a prominent bass. This was Chris Barnes' last album that he was working on, and then he eventually left for 6 Feet Under, well, the band that he created. A lot of things were said. Basically, I'm going to tell you guys the straight truth. I don't understand a lot of like band technical terms or anything like that, but there were creative differences. They were having problems with Chris Barnes' voice once they moved to Tampa, Florida. They wanted him to do a certain thing, but really the band wasn't much of a democracy how it was supposed to be. Barnes didn't want to do the things that they were approaching him with to do, and because he didn't feel like it was his style. So that's basically what I got out of it. But like I said, you guys been knowing since you've been watching my channel since day one, I don't know musical terms. I don't know what the hell any of them mean. I try to understand them, so I could only simplify it to my standards as much as I can. So Metal Blade Records were, of course, you know, horrified by the whole thought of Chris Barnes being kicked out. They had nothing to do with it whatsoever. So of course the band had to, like, you know, prove them that they could do this without Chris and with a new lead singer. And they, you know, gotta remember, Cannibal Corpse was at the peak of their career with the Bleeding album. So the band calls up George, and at that time George was with a band called Monstrosity. So they called him up, and George was ecstatic. If you ever see their documentary, you could tell that he was just happy that to be part of Cannibal Corpse, because Cannibal Corpse was kind of like one of the leading death bands at that time. So he knew that right away when they called him up that it was for an audition only, or else why else would they call him? So he goes in, audition, gets the part, and they work on the Vile album. Now, the thing is, while they're working on this, they totally forgot that, I don't think they forgot, but they kind of like they didn't really take for granted, but Chris Barnes did all the lyrics. So now they have to teach themselves how to write lyrically, especially the way he did it. So it wasn't an easy job. So it took a while for them to, like, you know, adjust to this new situation. By the way, that powder, the Selfie Ready powder I'm putting on right now, is by Joa Cosmetics. You can find it at CVS. However, it's an okay powder. I don't really recommend it. It doesn't really brighten. It kind of oxidizes almost. But like a weird oxidization. It's more like grayish. It's kind of weird. So yeah, I really don't recommend that unless you really want to look like a corpse. So George ended up proving Metal Blade Records that he was suited for the band, because they end up being one of the first, and I think even the only metal bands in general, well, no, not metal bands, death metal bands in general, that they made it on the top 200 Billboard. So they were right, I believe they were right before ABBA. I'll try to take a screenshot and put it in there somewhere. But he ended up proving them, and then not only that, a lot of people end up liking his vocals a little bit more. Don't get me wrong, there's going to be the Chris Barnes fan, and then there's going to be the George fans. So a lot of people like George better because you can lyrically hear him better. So then a couple more changes to the lineup happened. Jack left, Jack Owen. He ended up leaving just for, you know, I guess creative differences is the way to put it almost. And then Rob Ray came back and took his place. So there is a lot more about the band. There is some controversy around a few of the members, but I'm not going to get into that at all whatsoever. But I just wanted to let you guys know how I discovered the band. Unfortunately, it was through a guy that I liked a lot. So, but you know, I found good music through him. So what can I say? So Cannibal Corpse was probably the first death metal band I've ever discovered. And they were the ones that basically opened the gates for like a lot more heavier music, if you know what I mean. At that time, I think I was listening to nothing but like AC/DC and maybe Megadeth was like the most extreme sound I had. You know, it was like Kiss and all that. So Cannibal Corpse was one of the main bands that got me into it, along with like Possessed and all of them, into the heavier stuff. So that's why Cannibal Corpse always has like a soft place in my little itty bitty heart, that it's cold and black. But anyways, yeah, so I thought I'd just let you guys know. And I've seen Cannibal Corpse, oh shit, I think 3 or 4 times. I'm not sure. I'm going to say 4. I'm going to say 4 times. And the shirt that I have, my first shirt that I ever got was a Butchered at Death shirt. And the reason why I'm laughing at that is because I have gotten many stares wearing this shirt. And I even like chopped it up and everything and made it look like really cool, because I really wanted to like get better at cutting up shirts. And cutting up that shirt was one of my favorites, and it came out so nice. So, and I still hang on to that shirt, and I try not to wear it too much because it's really old now, and I'm afraid it like might tear apart more than it needs to be. I probably need to sew it up a little bit just to prevent that. But it definitely has given me stares, which is ironic now, because now girls, or even guys, who don't listen to this music are wearing band t-shirts for a style. Yeah, that gets on my nerves. Oh, by the way, I didn't put black liner on my waterline. I put a blue one. I should probably have mentioned that. But yeah, I was trying to keep it more about the story and then add in the details about the makeup later on. So anyways, I just want to say a big thank you to Cannibal Corpse for molding me into the person that I am today, as well as Vince Locke. Your art is amazing, and thank you for giving me so many crazy stares. By the way, I hate blues and reds combined together. It's such a hassle, especially to prevent them from turning purple. So anyways, yeah, I'm probably not going to do anything like this close ever again.
Anyways, this is the final look. I'm going to put like a full-on picture around here somewhere. Yeah, I kind of like this look a lot better, to tell you the truth. Like I said, I'm not good with blues and reds. I think they're just really tacky with each other. But it came out a lot better. Will I do this again? No. Anyways, thanks you guys for watching. Y'all take care of your vaginas and have a bonerific day.